On April 8th, 2022, I had read the Re:Zero novel that covers this part. And since I thought I understood everything about the series at that moment, well, I made a detailed video. But after rereading this excerpt in the novel, having reread the manga that adapts this part, and having read the author's tweets, I realized that in reality, I had no damn idea about anything. This video will be a bit different than usual, so expect a slight variation in the content of this one in particular. I'm not good at introductions, so let's just get started with the video. But first, a quick thank you to my donors on both of my channels. There are no new members for now, but thank you to everyone who makes it possible for Koneko Taco to keep existing. Welcome to Cut Content from Re:Zero's first season, episode number 8. As is custom in this format, let me refresh your memory. Episode 8 starts from when Subaru wakes up in the successful loop of the arc and covers up to the moment he convinces the sisters to go shopping in Arlem Village. Among some of the sequences that appear here are the part where Subaru tries to use magic, the part where Subaru discovers that the curse is cast by having physical contact with the victim, and finally, the scene of Subaru crying on Amelia's lap. I'll be honest with you, there is cut content, but it's dialogues that aren't that relevant. What is abundant is a certain liberty that the White Fox staff took. The anime once again took many liberties with the chronological order of events. In other words, the order in which you see things in the anime is wrong. All of this is wrong. But ironically, I'm grateful that the decision was made to make these changes. And I'm grateful because I firmly believe that the author not only agrees with the changes, but is also pleased with them. You see, in the anime, they put the lap pillow sequence as the central part of the episode. And since it's the most important thing, they put it at the end, after we see Subaru struggling to win everyone's trust. Whereas in the novel, the lap pillow scene happens much earlier, before we see him suffer from his overexertion. Yes, it's still a nice scene even in the novel, but it's simply more natural and significant to take the anime's chronological order. Well, that's how the anime adapted it, unlike the novel. As I said, the scene is still nice, but the anime's chronological timing was 1,000 times superior to the novel's chronological order. In fact, I think the author realized this detail and also prefers the anime's order. He prefers it to such an extent that when the manga covered this part weeks later, it covers it just like the order established in the anime. This is strange because until now, the manga was faithful to the novel's chronological order, but it wasn't in this part. It's because of this detail that I genuinely believe Teppei Nagatsuki prefers the anime's order of events over the novel's order. But before moving on to the key scene of the episode, let me give you a rundown of the omitted things that aren't as important but are necessary for the video. Some dialogues were omitted that better contextualize Subaru's thoughts on how he should handle things in this loop. Unironically, he was so committed to his mission of getting on the sisters' good side and finding the curse user that he had set a goal to work himself to death. I know you might think Subaru was exaggerating, but no, Subaru genuinely thought that. Although this wasn't easy for him. After all, he was constantly pushing himself to the maximum in every single minuscule task he was assigned. If he had to clean the bathroom or wash the dishes, he poured his entire being and his energy into those simple tasks. You might be wondering why Subaru is putting such dedication into such trivial activities. The protagonist does this and gives his all because he knows that if he tries to pretend he's working hard, his inactivity would be detected by the sisters. He had confirmed this in the second loop, a loop that ended badly. From that, he was left with the experience that he would never be able to reproduce the events that happened. So now he just tries his absolute best in what he does. Honestly, I don't know how the critics from 2016 could ask Subaru to be less of a crybaby and just repeat what he had already done, when the work itself makes it clear that the circumstances in each loop will be different, either due to the spontaneity of the characters or because of Subaru's essence, which is detected by some. Getting back on topic, he also puts in this excessive effort so that the sisters wouldn't doubt that he is someone who works hard and isn't hiding things. Unfortunately, this unusual effort would be detected by the sisters, who were disgusted by the protagonist's positivity. Technically, the protag hadn't done anything strange, but the fact that he was acting so intensely ironically made them suspect him even more. On top of that, something that further complicated his qualification as a possible infiltrator was the evaluation Ram made in her report about him. She said that there was no doubt he was a boy who genuinely tried to work, but it still bothered her that he seemed to have studied the mansion beforehand. She thought this because Subaru, for some reason, knew where things were even though he had never been given orientation on it. About Puck's scene, almost everything was adapted as it should have been, except for one part. Remember when Subaru met Emilia, she used the name Satella? Well, in the novel, it's Puck who ends up answering Subaru about the reason for this. But in the anime, they have Betty say it. They both tell him that if a person uses the witch's name, they are surely doing it to push away people who get close to them. This makes Subaru appreciate Emilia more, because he discovers she told him that so he wouldn't get involved with her for his own safety. I know it's not a big deal, but I'm sure someone will like this fact. But another more interesting fact is Puck's mention of Mion Mion. In another video in this cut content series, I showed you that in a failed loop, it was Roswal who evaluated Subaru's magical aptitudes. But since that loop is over, in this loop, it's Puck who does it, and upon evaluating the protagonist, he mentions the name of that ancient mage who existed over 400 years ago. It's normal for Puck to mention the same thing as Roswal. After all, they both learned that incantation from Echidna, someone who greatly influenced them. Also, in the novel, it's mentioned that when Subaru invoked this magic and covered part of the mansion, Rem was getting ready to go and retaliate against him, but was stopped by Ram. And let's move on to the climax of the episode that revitalized my love for the franchise. Something I didn't say is that the manga helped to clarify and better understand Subaru's words in this part. In the anime, for example, he starts to say that he has tried very hard for this, that he had never tried so hard in his life as he is now. He says this in relation to all the superhuman effort he's putting in to win the sisters' trust, and since he never had to try this hard before, well, he says it's the first time in his life he's done this. Then Subaru states the reason why he does all this. He does it because he loves the place and because this place is important to him. For a boy who had hidden himself away in his room, finding people he connected with despite his shortcomings is something he definitely wouldn't forget. And now that he knows the exact circumstances of his murders and how involved his attackers were, he understands that in his first loop, he didn't die because he was killed by Rem, but that he died from a different cause. Sure, he would be killed by her later, but he can't bring himself to put all the blame on Rem because he knows she acts that way because of his scent. A scent that reminds her of the tragedy she lived through a decade ago. And to make this more complicated, when he had resigned himself to hating her and staying away from her, the same Rem who killed him and Ram, who was also harsh with him, both agreed and did something to help him with his nightmares, even when they had no reason to do anything for him in that loop. That's why he ended up making another attempt at the mansion. He did it out of the guilt of thinking the worst of them. Then, there was another part where the protagonist says he does all this because he wants to get back everything that was snatched away from him. He says this while commenting that he doesn't want to be seen that way again by those eyes, the eyes of the people he cares about, but who ended up giving him a look of resentment and hatred for reasons that neither he nor they could control. Basically, Subaru is trying so hard because he doesn't want to feel those kinds of looks on him ever again. And even though he has already made the decision to save the girls, despite what they did to him, this brings him conflict. Yes, the act of saving them will be a noble action and all you want, but that doesn't change the fact that deep down, Subaru hates himself for choosing the option to save them even when he is scared of the situation and of them. That's why Subaru adds in this part that he hates himself, and he says it because he hates being the bearer of such contradictory thoughts. Honestly, this scene was very, very well adapted. It's the only moment in the series where I say with total seriousness that it's better to see it in the manga, as this material better depicts who Subaru was referring to with each part of his speech. Lastly, in the novel, it's added that Subaru ended up very embarrassed, not only for crying in front of Emilia, but also because he stained her whole skirt with his snot. But let's move on to the next section. Lately, I've been stalking the author so much that I wonder if he finds it strange that a Peruvian guy every 3 or 4 days starts liking his tweets from 2016. I hope he doesn't mind and doesn't block me. Let's start. First, we have a tweet from the author who says that in games, spells that strengthen or weaken players, buffs and debuffs, are a big deal. But here, in ReZero, they aren't such a determining factor. What matters most in the end is brute force. Honestly, I'm not a big fan of this style of power scaling, since reducing everything to the strength factor seems like a very simplistic approach to me, but I'm not the author, so let's move on. Second, the author was enchanted with the voice acting of Subaru's Seiyu. Therefore, he asks us to pay attention to the part where he starts to break down on Emilia's lap. Third, to pay refers to a subplot he left unanswered in the first season, specifically the reason why Emilia said her name was Satella, which, as I said in the previous section, she did because she wanted to push Subaru away from her problems. Fourth, the author comments on how happy he is that everything was animated according to the novel, which I imagine must be his way of saying that the general essence was maintained because, well, obviously it wasn't a one-to-one adaptation, nor should it be. Fifth, since Tappei is Japanese, and Japanese people tend to be perverts, like any of us, well, he made a comment about Subaru's peculiar angle on Amelia's lap. Sixth, according to Tappei, Subaru was crying for almost 3 to 4 hours, a time during which Amelia was sitting, waiting for him to wake up. And even in the novel, it said that Puck had offered to switch places with her, but she didn't let him. Anyway, those are all the trivia facts from the author. Let's go to the break time. And honestly, I have high expectations for what's coming. Honestly, I think this week's break time would have been much better if they had put it in this video's episode or the next one, because really, it's very sweet, and perhaps it would have helped people empathize more with Rem and Ram in this part of the story. I wasn't in the fandom at that time, but I do know a bit about what the general perception of the sisters was like back then. In this break time, we see Subaru and Amelia interacting the day after the episode's events, and we see how Amelia consoles Subaru while he's still trying to act tough and is embarrassed. Obviously, Rem and Ram take advantage of the situation to make fun of Subaru, but as soon as the protagonists go off screen for a moment, Rem and Ram decide not to be so hard on him. Rem asks her sister to stop staring so intensely at the protagonist, and Rem says that seeing him sleep the day before made her realize how vulnerable he was. Unfortunately, as soon as Subaru returned, the sisters went back to their usual harshness and coldness, but it doesn't change the fact that even they were moved by the protagonist's crying. And that has been all for today. Thank you very much for reaching this part of the video. I would have liked to expand a bit more on Subaru's desperation while crying, but that's something I feel I've been covering for 2 to 3 episodes now. And since I didn't want to sound like a broken record repeating the same thing, I only contributed what I thought hadn't been contributed yet. And as I always say, a like and a comment can be the difference between a video with low views and a successful video. So tell me, what did you think of the lap pillow scene?